She looked me dead in the eye and said, "Brecken, I need someone richer." No hesitation, no trembling lip, just calm, practiced honesty, like she'd rehearsed it. The gift box was still open on the table between us. Inside it, the bracelet I'd spent 2 months saving for. Real gold. Not the flashiest, but beautiful. She pushed it back toward me with 2 fingers. "I like it," Leilani added with a shrug. "But I can't wear this around him." I didn't ask who him was. I didn't need to. She picked up her phone, checked something, then stood. Her heels clicked as she walked to the door. "I'm meeting someone. He drives a Porsche. Don't wait up." The door shut behind her like a punch. I sat in silence, staring at the bracelet. I wasn't angry yet. Just hollow. A few hours later, I got a text. From her mother. "Dinner tomorrow. 8 p.m. Don't be late." I almost laughed. Maybe she hadn't heard. Maybe she didn't know her daughter dumped me for someone with a faster car and a thicker wallet. But I knew better. Leilani's mother had always been sharp, the type to smile while cutting with her words. I didn't owe her anything, but something made me say yes. Maybe I wanted closure. Maybe I wanted to understand how a girl who used to cry in my arms when her boss scolded her could suddenly act like I was nothing. I showed up the next night, in a clean shirt, no tie. The house was the same, marble tiles, warm lighting, and the faint scent of roses. Leilani opened the door herself. Her eyes flickered, then narrowed. "You actually came. Your mom invited me?" She stepped aside. Of course she did. I walked in and stopped short. The table was already set. 4 seats. Hers, mine, her mother's, and one more. That's when I heard the voice from the next room. "Brecken? Heard a lot about you." He walked in wearing a tailored suit and the smug confidence of a man who was used to winning. Zane, the man she left me for. Dinner hadn't started. But I'd already lost my appetite. I met Leilani 4 years ago, at a broken photocopier in the back hallway of a shared office building. She was swearing under her breath, poking at the machine like it had insulted her personally. "Paper jam," I said, stepping in. "Mind if I try?" She stepped aside with a huff. "Be my guest, hero." I cleared it in under 30 seconds. She stared like I'd performed magic. "You just saved me from being fired," she said. "That earns you coffee." We went to the cafe across the street. It wasn't a date. But something about the way she stirred her drink, how she rolled her eyes at my jokes but still laughed. I knew right then she'd matter. Leilani wasn't like anyone I'd ever met. She was electric, sharp, beautiful, the kind of woman who filled every room she walked into. She could be sweet, sure, but she was always chasing something. More, better, faster. I was calm water. She was lightning. Back then, we both worked too many hours and made too little money. She lived with her mom in the suburbs and I was staying in a tiny 1-bedroom above a laundry shop. We'd cook ramen on weekends and pretend it was a date. She'd sit on the kitchen counter in my oversized hoodie, talking about all the places she wanted to see. "I don't want to settle, Brecken," she told me once, looking at the cracked ceiling. "I've been poor my whole life. I want silk, sheets and ocean views, and not flinching when I check my bank balance." "I'll give you those someday," I promised. She laughed. "You're sweet, but you think you're invincible. You don't realize that hard work doesn't always win." At the time, I didn't know what that meant. I thought love was enough. I was wrong. Our relationship had always been half fire, half foundation. I gave her peace, she gave me chaos. And, for a while, it worked. We balanced. When I landed an internship at Kaizen Group, she cried with joy. "You're getting closer," she whispered, holding my face. "We're going to make it." But after I was let go in the restructuring, everything changed. The fights came faster. Her silences got colder. Still, I held on, because I remembered her laugh, her bare face in the morning, the way she used to trace circles on my hand when she couldn't sleep. But slowly, piece by piece, Leilani detached. She started comparing. Subtly, at first. Zane bought his girl a Cartier bracelet. Do you think that's too flashy? Zane's taking his team to Bali. He's only 30. Zane this. Zane that. I never asked who he was. She never offered. But I knew, and then, 2 nights ago, she ended it. Not with a scream, not with tears, just a bracelet pushed back across a table. A final, quiet rejection. I didn't argue, because some part of me had already seen it coming. What I didn't expect was her mother. She'd always been different, polished, calculated. A former finance exec turned boutique consultant. I never knew what she thought of me, but I suspected I didn't make her shortlist. Still, I had been to that house many times, for holidays, for birthdays, for Sundays when Leilani begged me to come over because she didn't want to deal with her mom, alone. Her mother had this way of speaking, kind words, sharp edges. She'd ask about my job, nod politely, then mention some hedge fund intern who just bought his second condo. Leilani told me once, "If you can impress my mom, you can impress anyone." Apparently, I hadn't. So when she called me after the breakup, I was stunned. I don't know what I expected walking into that house again. Not warmth. Certainly not kindness. And definitely not Zane Kaizen. He stood at the far end of the room, by the wine cart. He poured himself a glass like he owned the place. His cufflinks glinted under the chandelier. "Brecken," he said smoothly. "I was hoping we'd meet." I didn't answer. I looked at Leilani instead. She avoided my gaze. So this was it. Not just a breakup. A trade-up. I had been the training wheels. He was the luxury car. Her mother stepped between us, smiling like a hostess at a well-managed dinner party. "Sit, Brecken. We've all got a lot to discuss." No one mentioned the breakup. No one said the word. Instead, they asked about my current job, my projections, my prospects, and every time I answered, I saw Leilani flinch slightly. Like she didn't realize I'd kept moving forward after her, but I had. Maybe not with money, but with strength, and tonight she was going to see all of it. The room was warm, but my hands were cold. I sat across from Zane Kaizen, the man my ex left me for, while her mother poured me vintage wine and asked questions like we were in a job interview. "How's your current firm doing, Brecken?" she asked, eyes sharp behind her glass. "You're in logistics now, right?" I nodded. "Revenue's up this quarter. We just closed a contract with a regional chain. It's stable." "Stable," she repeated. "Interesting?" I glanced at Leilani. She hadn't said a word since I arrived. Her posture was perfect, her fork untouched. Her fingers played absently with her napkin. Zane leaned back in his chair. "You know," he said casually, "I remember your name from a few reports back when I was overseeing Kaizen's intern files. You did well. Surprised they let you go." I didn't rise to it. I knew a dig when I heard one. Her mother smiled. "Zane's been generous with his time lately. He's taken quite a liking to our family." That's when it hit me. This dinner wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't closure. It was a performance. Leilani had brought me here to sit across from the man she'd replaced me with, while her mother assessed if he was the upgrade they hoped for. I wasn't the guest. I was the past. A living reminder of what she'd outgrown. But what neither of them expected was that I'd changed too. "Zane," I said, smiling politely. "How's your equity portfolio handling the shifts in Eastern markets?" He blinked, surprised. Fine, we have people for that." I nodded. "Of course. I just thought you might have looked into it. You seem hands-on." He frowned. Leilani's mother sipped her wine, watching the exchange. I turned to Leilani. "Is this what you wanted?" She flinched. "Brecken, I don't mean the dinner. I mean this. Him. The life. The looks. The pressure. Is this what you wanted when you said you needed more?" Zane laughed lightly. "Now, hold on. There's no need to get emotional. We're just talking." I stood up. "No, you're showing off, and I'm done playing along." Leilani finally looked up, eyes sharp. "You think I betrayed you?" I didn't answer. She stood too, jaw tightening. "I needed something you couldn't give me. That's not betrayal, it's survival." I stared at her. "No, what you did was step on someone who would have carried you." Silence. Zane crossed his arms. Maybe you should go. I was already leaving. I stepped away from the table. But before I reached the door, Leilani spoke again. You always made me feel guilty for wanting more. I turned. And you always made me feel small for not having it yet. Her mother stood then. That's enough. But it wasn't, because the pain didn't come from her leaving me. It came from the fact that somewhere along the way she stopped believing I was worth waiting for. I walked out without another word. The hallway felt too long. My heart slammed against my chest like it wanted out. But just as I reached the door, I heard something I hadn't expected. Brecken, wait. I paused. Leilani followed me out, barefoot now, her heels abandoned on the polished floor. She looked smaller, not fragile, just real. I didn't call you here to humiliate you, she said. I didn't even know he'd be here. I turned slowly. Then why? I don't know, she admitted. I saw the way my mom looked when I told her we broke up. I saw the way she instantly wanted Zane to replace you. I guess I panicked. I let her convince me I needed to compare. Her voice cracked. And now you don't know where you stand, I said. She nodded. Zane looks good on paper, but he doesn't stay up until 3 a.m. to hear me talk about my dreams. He doesn't sit on the fire escape with me during thunderstorms. He doesn't know how I like my coffee. He doesn't see me. She stepped closer. You do. I didn't move. I made a mistake, she whispered. But if there's even a part of you that still... Stop. She froze. I looked into her eyes, once my favorite color. I still care, I said quietly. But caring doesn't mean returning to a place I had to bleed to escape. She swallowed hard. Then that's it? I nodded. That's me choosing. Myself. For once. She didn't cry, but her silence said enough. I walked out, into the night, into the unknown. But for the first time in a long time, it felt like freedom. The night air hit like a wave the moment I stepped outside. Cold, heavy, but not heavier than what I was carrying inside me. Every step I took away from that house felt like a weight being lifted and replaced all at once. Freedom on the outside, chaos inside. I kept thinking of her barefoot in the hallway, of the way her voice cracked when she said, "You do." And for a second, just a second, I wanted to turn around. Because how do you unlove someone who once felt like home? You don't. You just learn to live without the door key. I sat in my car for a long time without starting it. My hands rested on the steering wheel, unmoving. But my heart wouldn't stop racing. All those years together. The ramen nights. The shoulder rubs when she was stressed. The little notes she used to leave in my bag with folded corners and bad stick figure drawings. Were those memories real to her? Or had they just become placeholders until someone richer walked in? I didn't know what hurt more. The idea that she stopped loving me, or the possibility that she never really did. The parking lot was quiet, but my mind wasn't. I could still hear her mom's voice, slicing through my self-worth with politeness. Stable, interesting, as if I were an old car that still ran but wasn't worth insuring. And Zane, that smug grin, the way he spoke like he already owned everything in the room, including her. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the feeling that I had been passed over like an outdated model, replaced by someone flashier. I hadn't realized how much that messed with my head until now. Because somewhere in the middle of rebuilding myself, I started to wonder if I had ever really been enough, not just for her, but for anyone. And the worst part, a tiny part of me still wanted to impress her, still wanted her to see me succeed, to regret letting me go. That was the part I hated most, the part of me that still needed her validation. I slammed my hand against the steering wheel, not hard enough to break anything, just enough to feel something. I didn't cry, I hadn't in years, but my throat burned, my eyes stung, and I could feel the pressure building in my chest, like the silence inside me had grown teeth. I started the engine, but I didn't go home. Instead, I drove. Past familiar streets, past old memories, past the cafe where we had our first unofficial date. The table by the window was still there. Someone else was sitting there now, laughing with their head thrown back. It made me feel like a ghost, like I'd left pieces of myself all over the city and didn't know how to collect them again. I ended up at the Overlook, the one that faced the entire skyline. It used to be our spot. Now it was just mine. I stepped out of the car and walked toward the edge. The wind was cruel, but I didn't move. I needed to feel everything. The loss. The humiliation. The ache. But also the realization that I didn't need to go back. That I didn't need to prove anything to anyone who couldn't see my worth before the money came. Because love isn't about arrival. It's about staying during the climb. And Leilani left when the stairs got steep. That wasn't on me. That was on her. Still, I was angry. Angry at her. Angry at myself. Angry at the version of me that was ready to burn for someone who wouldn't even light a match in return. I took a deep breath. The skyline didn't change. But something inside me did, and I knew then. I wouldn't go back. Not even if she begged. Not even if she cried. Because I deserved more than someone who chose me only when it was convenient. I wanted someone who chose me when it wasn't. And for the first time, I was willing to wait for that, even if it meant walking alone. 3 days later, I got a message from an unknown number. Brecken, please come to the address below. It's urgent. Aviana. I hadn't seen Aviana in almost a year. Leilani's cousin. Quiet. Always observing from the edges of family dinners. The kind of person who spoke rarely, but meant it when she did. We'd barely exchanged more than polite hellos during my time with Leilani. Still, there was something about the message, how direct it was, how unlike her it felt, that made me reply. I'll be there in an hour. The address led to a modest apartment complex on the other side of town. It was raining again. She opened the door almost immediately, her eyes wide and unsure. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Thanks for coming, she said, stepping aside. What's going on? I asked, wiping my shoes at the door. She hesitated, then handed me a manila envelope. This came to me by mistake. It's about Leilani. I opened it. Inside were printed pages, emails, financial reports, hotel invoices, all of them traced back to one person, Zane. But not the kind of expenses you'd expect. Not dinners or jewelry, retainers, payouts, wire transfers to a shell, company linked to Leilani's mother. Aviana, I said slowly. What am I looking at? She looked ashamed. My aunt sold your internship placement. I stared at her. She pulled strings to get you in through Zane's team at Kaizen. And when the company started letting people go, she made sure your name was on the list. I didn't understand. Why? Because if you stayed, she whispered, you would have had a future. And she wanted Leilani with someone who had already arrived. My breath caught in my throat. She sabotaged you, Brecken. And she lied. To Leilani about it, too. Said Kaizen cut everyone. Said you weren't good enough. The floor felt unsteady beneath me. I remembered all the nights I blamed myself. All the times Leilani looked at me with disappointment, not knowing someone else had poisoned the well. Aviana stepped closer. I thought you should know. She didn't leave you because you failed. She left because she was made to believe you. Never stood a chance. I sank onto the couch, the papers still in my hand. It wasn't just betrayal. It was manipulation. From a woman who smiled at me while cutting me down. I thought I lost her because I wasn't enough. I muttered. You, where Aviana said quietly. She just never got the truth. I looked up at her. Her eyes were kind, honest. And suddenly I saw all the times she'd watched from the background, seeing what I hadn't, saying nothing until it mattered. Another silence passed. Then I asked, why are you telling me this now? She hesitated, then said something I wasn't ready for. Because I think you deserved to know before you walked away for good. And just like that, the wound I thought I'd already cauterized opened again. But this time, I knew who held the knife. I didn't sleep that night. I read those documents over and over until the lines blurred. My hands trembled, not from heartbreak, but from the weight of everything I hadn't known. She didn't leave me because I wasn't enough. She left because someone rewrote the story of who I was before she ever had a chance to read it properly. And now I couldn't stop asking myself the same question. If she had known the truth, would she have stayed? By morning, I had my answer. I didn't go to work. I didn't answer calls. I drove to the only place I hadn't dared return to since. She ended things, Leilani's home. Not the new penthouse Zane put her in. The old one. The one we used to sit in for hours on the floor, dreaming about the future. Her mother opened the door. Her expression didn't change. "Brecken," she said with a thin smile. "I didn't expect to see you again." I walked past, her without asking. Leilani was in the kitchen, barefoot, hair tied back, holding a mug. She looked up, startled. "Brecken?" I stood still. Let her look at me. Let her try to read the storm in my eyes. "I know what happened," I said quietly. "With Kaizen, with the job, with your mother." She blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" I tossed the envelope on the counter. She opened it slowly, scanning the pages. With every sheet she flipped, her face paled. What is this?" she asked. "It's the reason I lost the internship. The reason I couldn't give you the life you wanted when you demanded more. Your mother made sure I'd fail before I even started." She looked up, eyes wide, breath shaky. "I didn't know." "I know you didn't." I stepped closer, voice low and steady. "But instead of asking me, you assumed. You believed I wasn't enough? You looked at me and decided the man in front of you wasn't worth fighting for." Tears welled in her eyes. "Brecken, I didn't know." "You didn't want to know." Her hands trembled. "Please, let me explain." I shook my head. "There's nothing left to explain." She took a shaky breath. "I was scared." "I was too," I said. "But I stayed. Even when I had nothing. I stayed. I showed up for you every day." The silence was suffocating. Then her mother spoke from behind me. "It was for her own good. You couldn't offer her the life she deserved." I turned slowly. "And who decided what she deserved? You? Or the part of you that was afraid she'd fall in love with someone real?" Her lips tightened. "I protected her future." "No," I said. "You protected your control." I turned back to Leilani. "I'm not angry because you left. I'm angry because I believed it was all my fault, that I wasn't enough, that I couldn't make you happy." She took a step forward, tears now rolling freely down her cheeks. "I was wrong." "Yeah," I whispered. "So was I." "Please, don't go," she said. "Not like this, but I had to. Not out of hate, not even out of pride, out of peace. Because I finally understood that I had spent too long bleeding in places where I should have been healing." I left without another word. 3 weeks passed. Aviana checked in every few days. Just a simple message. Never pushing, never asking. For more than I wanted to give. And slowly, I started to breathe again. I returned to my work with more fire than ever before. Closed 2 new contracts, got promoted, moved into a new apartment. Nothing huge, but mine. Fully mine. Then one evening, as the sun dipped behind the skyline, Aviana called. "I'm near your office. Can I stop by?" I hesitated. "Sure." She met me outside, holding a small bag. "I made too much dinner." I laughed. "You bribing me with food now?" She smiled. "Works every time." We sat on a bench overlooking the street, eating from plastic containers, and it was easy. No performance. No guilt. No pressure to impress. Just peace. At one point, I looked at her and asked the question I hadn't dared ask anyone else. "Why did you really give me that envelope?" She took a deep breath. "Because I saw what they did to you. And I couldn't unsee it. And because I wanted to see what you'd do with the truth." I watched her, the wind catching her hair, the light casting soft shadows on her face, and I realized I wasn't holding on to Leilani anymore. Not really. I had mourned her, but I was done making a monument out of a mistake. She had her chapter, but this was a new page. I reached for her hand. She didn't flinch, and for the first time in a long time, my heart didn't race in fear. It steadied, because something real doesn't scream for attention. It just stays, and that was enough. 3 months later, my name was everywhere. The promotion I'd earned quietly turned into a spotlight. A major logistics deal I led got picked up by multiple business publications. Clients were calling, partners were asking to meet. Suddenly, the man everyone thought had been left behind became someone no one could ignore, and with success came visibility. Leilani saw it first through whispers, my name in the same room Zane occupied. Articles that featured me on panels he used to dominate alone. Then one morning, I received an invitation to a gala, one hosted by a nonprofit she was closely tied to. I almost threw it out, but something made me stop. Sometimes silence isn't the best revenge. Sometimes the best revenge is letting them see what they gave up. I went. I didn't go with Aviana. That wasn't her kind of space. She wished me well and smiled as she straightened the lapel of my blazer. "Knock them all out with your existence," she said. So I did. The venue was a ballroom lined with chandeliers and tall glasses of champagne. Everyone wore masks. It was a masquerade fundraiser. I stepped in, and every head turned. Not because I wanted them to, but because success doesn't shout. It walks in and makes everything quieter. Zane spotted me first. His smirk faltered for a brief second before returning. "Brecken," he said, clapping me on the back. "I heard you've been making waves." I smiled. "I tend to do that. Once people stop stepping on my neck." He stiffened. Leilani approached a moment later. Mask off, face pale. Dress stunning, but empty. She looked me over, like she was seeing me for the first time. "You look different." "I am," I replied. She glanced at the crowd, then at Zane. "You've become everything I hoped for." "No," I said calmly. "I've become everything you didn't wait for." She bit her lip. "Brecken, I made a mistake." "I know," I said. "I never stopped loving you." I stepped closer, eyes locked on hers. "You didn't love me. You loved what I could become, if I made it. You just didn't want to build it together." Tears welled in her eyes, but I wasn't moved, because in that moment I realized something that changed everything. Her mother's sabotage, Zane's presence, Leilani's easy departure, none of it broke me. It built me. She reached out to touch my arm. "Do you ever think of what we could have had?" I stared at her hand. "Sometimes. But then I remember that I wouldn't be who I am now if I had stayed where you left me." Zane stepped forward, tone sharper. "All right, that's enough. You've made your point." I turned to him, smiled. "Have I?" I pulled something from my inside pocket, a sleek black folder. I handed it to him without a word. He opened it and paled. Inside were contracts, agreements, signatures, Kaizen's new logistics division, run by me, replacing his. "Effective this quarter," I said softly. "Your department was under review. The board wanted someone leaner, more accountable, and with better public relations." I nodded at the press camera not far from us. Leilani stared between us, stunned. "You took his job?" "No," I said. "He gave it away. When he underestimated me." Zane looked like he'd been punched in the throat. He couldn't even speak. I stepped back, my voice level. "This isn't revenge. This is realignment. I don't want to destroy you. I just want my space back." I turned to leave, but then stopped, looked once more at Leilani. "There's something else," I said. Her eyes searched mine. I pulled my phone out, showed her a photo. It was Aviana, holding my hand at a small street fair, laughing at something I'd whispered. "She stayed," I said quietly. in the shadows, in the pain, in the silence. She stayed. And then I walked away. Months passed. Leilani's family slowly unraveled. The scandal of her mother's backdoor dealings at Kaizen eventually leaked. Zane was forced to resign publicly after the board saw how deep the conflicts ran, and I thrived. New office, new city, new life. But every Sunday, I still walked to the farmer's market with Aviana. She never needed champagne or chandeliers. She just needed honesty, the kind that doesn't need a mask. One day, as we sat on our favorite rooftop under the sunset, she turned to me and asked softly, "Do you ever think of her anymore?" I smiled, fingers laced with hers. "I think of the lesson." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "And what was it?" "That peace is louder than chaos," I said. "And loyalty is the richest currency there is." We didn't need to say more. The skyline lit up below us. I had lost everything once. But now I had something better. Not a second chance, a true beginning. And for the first time, I wasn't chasing anyone. I was being chosen. And that was the ultimate closure.